Hi, it's Kevin Greenough from Blum, Canada, speaking to you from our showroom in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. Today we are actually going to go through the full process of the planning and design, the manufacturing and the installation of hardware for the new pocket system that we call REVEGO. We're going to do today a Duo system as well as an Uno system, the Duo being a double door system. Here we're showing it in our showroom as an environment that could be multifaceted, and we're going to show you how to close the doors. All we got to do is just give a slight touch to the fronts, and with no electricity, this is all pure mechanical. The doors start to close on themselves. I will finish it by closing it, and with our REVEGO Uno, same situation. I push on the doors to get it activated, and I will finish it by closing it. From there, I have taken whatever application I may have had, whether it be a laundry, a home office, a kitchen, an entertainment unit, and I've created the perfect wall hiding everything behind it. So now I got a nice, beautiful environment around me. To get into the application, I'm going to push gently on the doors. I'm going to guide the Duo door system into its pocket. As well as the Uno, push to release, and the tip-on for doors is going to release it from the top, and I put it back in its pocket. And now we're going to show you how to plan and design a REVEGO Duo and an Uno together. We're also going to show you the manufacturing and the assembly and the installation of both systems in our training room. So right now we're at the process of starting the entire planning of a REVEGO pocket system. From here, we're going to get all the data that we need for the application that we have that we're going to design, and we're going to bring it into our product configurator. To get to the product configurator on our website at blum.com, it will be at the top right corner. From there, it goes into our e-services platform, and I get to choose in our product configurator many different applications, but right in front of me is the pocket systems. And I will do a configuration now, and it will go into the actual starting process of getting into the REVEGO plan. So as you can see here, I am looking at the REVEGO option. I will click there, and what we're going to be doing here is we have three choices. I'm going to be doing a freestanding installation, but we also have the ability to do a niche installation. So if I had a run of cabinets and I wanted to put it in between those cabinets, I can do so. And now we have a third and new way of doing things, which is by just doing the front width and the number of fronts I want to put in. So if I had a series of panels and I wanted to keep matching them up across a wall, I can actually say, okay, I do have these fixed panel sizes and I want to work with them. But I'm going to just start with the freestanding installation for what we have in our application that we're doing today. So here it's telling me right off the bat, it says I'm going to have a bunch of optional opportunities to pass over when I'm going into the system, because as I start entering data, when I have an optional place, I can leave it blank because the next information is going to start backfilling that data. So here, when I look at the screen, it's giving me basically the three core pieces. I'm looking for width, height, and depth. And with every application, right below it, it says I have a minimum and a maximum dimension that I can fulfill with any application on the REVEGO system. So I'm going to enter in a width of 2088 millimeters. Unfortunately, all we do is millimeters, but if you look at the top of the page here, we also have a conversion calculator right there. So if you are working from a plan that is in inches, it's very simple to add that dimension in there and get the metric equivalent. So the internal height within the system that we're going to be working with roughly is going to be, for us, it's going to be 2200. And keep in mind that I'm just going through the data just to give you a walkthrough on what is required and what's going to come out of the system. When you do your own information or your own application, all the data in your drawings are going to be entered in here. So it could be of any dimension within our specifications that you can enter. So for here, I'm going to enter an internal depth of, I'm going to put in 750 millimeters, hit enter. And as I get into all the data that's filled in, I will get an orange next button, which means I can now go to the next page. So with that dimension that I entered in previously, these are the options available. So I can do a REVEGO Duo and an Uno, or reverse it and do an uno and a duo, or I can, for this instance, actually put 2 duo units in here. For this one, I'm going to do a duo on the left and an uno on the right. And I have the option of doing with or without a toe kick. A majority of the applications we see today are without a toe kick and going right down to the floor. And I'm going to be asking about what my pocket is going to be with regards to the material that I use. And for a default 3/4 inch material is going to be 19 millimeters. So I've already got it pre-entered in from another applicator or another plan that I'd done previously. But as you can see, there's a minimum requirement of between 15 and 19 millimeters. So from there, I go next. So when I look at the gap information now I'm getting a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of the application. So when I look at this here, I've got between 0 and 6 millimeters. One of the things to be aware of when I look at this is the zooming in of this screen about the data, what I'm after. I'm actually asking for the gap against the vertical panel. On the top, I have a 10 millimeter plate. So when we're talking about a 0 mil gap, I'm not talking about 0 mil to the top, I'm talking about 0 mil to here. But keep in mind, I'll have a 10 mil space at the top. So I am going to put in 0. And the same thing goes with the bottom. On a to the floor unit, I have the gap here between 7 and 13. But the REVEGO system demands a minimum of 10 millimeters at the floor to accommodate any maybe questionable floor leveling. But I can also go to a maximum of 13 millimeters on the gap. But when I look at what it is it's asking me for on the bottom of the system, it's again doing it from the vertical panel. But at the bottom, I will have a 3 mil gap. So that minimum of 7 millimeters is actually going to be 10. Now, not to be too concerned about minimums, I can go up to 5/8 of an inch or 16 millimeters of space at the bottom. So for this instance, I'm going to put in 7, and that will give me my 10 at the bottom. So now I have a what we call a fixed shelf, and that is a shelf that's going to help encompass the application inside and also hide for me the track that the REVEGO runs on. So this will be also 19 mil material because I'm going to be running that material thickness throughout. And you can see with the zoom in what it's talking about. So below here would be cabinetry or whatever it is in the application, and that's the panel there. The next one is the track cover panel thickness. This is the panel that's going to hide the rail in front of my application and also attach the Duo's magnetic catch tube. That too will be 19 millimeters. So here, because I've already predetermined some gaps and width and other height dimensions, I'm getting some autofill here, and that's some of the optional data that was included there in the beginning. So I'm not really having to change anything, so I'm getting all this in here. So once what we're seeing here is I have the orange button next to go, so I'll hit next. And now we see optional entries for width, height, and depth again. It's just more of a reminder. Again, I can turn these off, but when I turn them off, I'm not going to get maybe some warnings that may be of use for me in other applications. So I'll just keep having those pop-ups show up. So now for the gaps that I'm going to create, I have the opportunity between 1 and 4 millimeters of gap. So I'm going to be using 2. And with this portion of the screen, I have to hit enter at every turn. So 2, 2, and it does double it up from 2 to 2 to 4 between the doors, but I'm going to change that to 2 as well. And now from here, I've got an option with regards to demanding how wide I want to have that panel on my Duo between 716.5 and 747.5 in millimeters. I'm going to create that as 720. I'm going to go kind of in the middle. Actually, let's try 725. I'll hit enter. And then because I've now done the 725, it's equaled it out to 725, and it's now done my Duo door automatically, my Uno door automatically. So now I have the next button available, and I'm going to process information. So now I'm talking about the door thickness. I have the opportunity to go between 18 and 26 millimeters. One thing to be aware of is that at 23 millimeters and beyond, we are actually planning door buffers. If I'm going to be doing anything under that, I won't be doing the door buffers. And what those door buffers do is as we get a thicker door, it's getting closer and closer to the hardware within the pocket. These buffers are going to guide the door away from that hardware, preventing any scratches on our fine finished doors. So for our instance, we're actually running a 19 millimeter door. So I'm going to just continue with that. And now I'm getting some fixed numbers here. This is my what we call nominal length, and that is my front to back application for the aluminum profiles that is going to carry the door within the pocket. So I'm getting a detail of 675 millimeters on the nominal length. And when I see the door protrusion, I'm actually getting an opportunity here to make some changes between 24 and 290 millimeters. Now, I don't want my door to be sticking out 290 millimeters. I want to keep it as minimum as possible. The minimum application for a REVEGO is actually 7 millimeters, but based on the pocket depth, the door width, it's just a matter of math. And here it's saying I'm going to get a minimum of 24 or 65 millimeters. 65 millimeters being just under 3 inches. So I'm going to keep it there. And now when I get into the pocket for the Uno, I'm going to have a bigger protrusion here because I hadn't actually had a larger door on my Uno system. But here, if I go to the application of going to another length from 700 to 800 millimeters in our nominal length, I'm going to go from 195 down to 179. So I'm going to get, you know, what's that, about another 16 millimeters of clearance. But when I do that change, what I'm doing is I'm going from a system that would go in without any adjustments to actually having to make some adjustments. Not a big deal, but it's just a way of gaining more or less door protrusion. So when I look here, I've also got, I'm going to start processing the back dimension. And what we're going to see here is that what happens is when I put in the back thickness, it's going to create a rabbet in the process so that when I set the back in, it's going to create the pocket make the pocket a little bit more rigid, a little bit more stable when we start to install it on site. So I'm going to go into adding a 19 millimeter back, and also too, when I'm going to enter in 19 millimeters, I may actually see a change in that protrusion number because I may be putting such a thick back, I'm actually pushing all the hardware ahead. So I'm going to hit enter, and I'm actually now going to create a door protrusion of 194 because again, I've made a thick back and pushed it out. So I have the opportunity here to go to the next page, and this is where we see some of the optional components. And this is a inner door support, which is going to be applied to the to one of the doors, and what it's going to do is rest on the toe kick, and it's going to keep the door at the bottom more rigid and not moving. Now, I don't need it. It is totally an option, but we're going to plan for it to give us that ability to keep that door pretty solid at the bottom. And then one of the options that is here, but unfortunately with Canada, we run on a 110/120 system. The contact switch adapter for electrical appliances switch off. So if you're running a fridge, a stove, or anything, I believe by most standards, we have to have a cutoff because you don't want to have a stove running or something running behind closed doors. So because this is not a system in Canada, it does still show there. Most of the cabinet makers and designers already have a system in place to put an electrical cutoff. So we're going to keep that at no. So the scuff guards, I did mention earlier that if I went beyond 22 millimeters, I would be able to see the scuff guards planned automatically. I would have no choice in the matter. Here I have the choice in the matter. So I will actually not plan those scuff guards because I am at 19 millimeters. Now I'm looking at the system screws. So the system screws are what holds all the hardware in place. And so what we're looking at is what we call a 6 by 14.5 millimeter system screw. It's called a 661.1450. I don't have any, so I'm going to order some. And when I do place it, it's going to show up as 1. But as we order it, it becomes 1,000. And same thing goes with the chipboard screws, and that is actually the only time we use a wood screw in the REVEGO application. That's to hold the end caps, the top cap and the bottom cap for the pockets. And I'm going to put it as in yes, so I have the actual correct screw specified. And if I was using a thin door system or a thinner application, I do have the ability of putting in the Expando T system, but that's for another day. So when I go to next, you'll see some dots that are flashing. That means we're getting to the end. Now we're showing a screen where it shows all the data I've entered in. It's now going to create a parts list for me, and it even gives me a quick visual of the parts that are in there, including that system screw and the wood screw that I specified. I'm also going to get planning and design information, and that is inclusive of of clearances and specific numbers that are there. But when I do an output of an export for a PDF file, I'm going to get all that in a bigger format anyways. There's going to be a cut list, so all the components I need to have cut for this is going to be there, including any aluminum parts that I need to trim, and any assembly and adjustment information. And that includes the PDFs of all the paper instructions that come within the product boxes, as well as installation videos. And when you do an installation for the very first time, these things become very critical and help you along the way and make things that much easier. So on the right side, I've got a way of saving all this information. So what I'm going to right away save this, because I've gone through all this effort to create the program. So I'm going to add it to a project. And now I'm going to select a drop folder. I'm going to create a new folder, and I call it the training unit in our showroom. Save. I'm going to find that folder, and I'm now going to select and add that. So now I'm going to save this one unit. Now I'm safe that I'm not going to create an accidental closure of my window and lose that information. So I'm going to go back and show you what I've got here. So I've now got add to a library. So I could actually create a cabinet library within the eServices platform. So whether it be drawers and doors or lift systems like Aventos, I can start saving this data. And as a small cabinet maker or a small designer, this is pretty critical because I might be calling this stuff over and over again, especially the base cabinets and upper cabinets. So I can save this and never have to go through all this data again. I can add it to a project. So if I'm doing a project on number 1 Mars Street, I can say number 1 Mars Street and put all those cabinets in that one application. And now I can add to an order list, and I can create an order list as well and just keep adding parts into. What's also good is that I have 2 options. I mean, I'm speaking to you from Blum, Canada, so I see a different option sheet than you, but you will see a transfer to distributor option. So when we click on that, we're going to have the option to a distributor's online shopping basket, or the ability to have the system email my distributor and say, hey, I need some more information. Can you please quote me that data? Or I would like to order it right away. Either way, I can get through that data. So the export here, this is a PDF that I'm going to create, and I have the ability of having barcodes if I have a system that requires it. I'm going to just check off all the applications. So the planning information and design, yes. I'm going to do the cuttings and fittings, yes. Cuttings and wood parts, correct. The barcodes for those parts, a detailed view of those parts, and production drawings. So when I download this, I'm going to guess, about 38 to 40 pages of information on a PDF. Now, you need all of it. I don't say you need every single one of it, but when you transfer this information into the shop, it's good to have it accompany the project. So that way it's a good reference point for those that are in the shop. They can double check dimensions to make sure the stuff is cut correctly, as well as possibly to make sure I have the right parts in the right place. So from here, you can see on my screen when I open the file, you're going to see a title page of what it is that I'm creating, which is that REVEGO unit, Duo and Uno without a toe kick, and a front height of 2312. And there's all the key data that I've entered in. And these are the parts, including a little visual, and also some of the data, including, say, that way of showing, here's my pocket, and my door is going to come out, in this instance, 725 millimeters. So if I'm planning an island or putting something out there, I know I've got it at least cleared by that much. And then the Uno is going to come out 880 millimeters, so that way I know that as well, or this is the application. Very good details with regards to specifications and metric as to where everything has to go. I mean, these are just good, quick references. But when I scroll all the way down, there's a lot more detail here. Don't be afraid of it because it's just information. When we transfer this over to the CNC, this is all being transferred over as well. These are all just for references. I mean, these are good numbers to look at and say, guess what? I did plan it. Is it still fitting within the space I've gotten so I can understand the gaps? Yes, it is. That's great. I keep going through. We start seeing options of what I need to cut and what it means and what it's going to be. So when I scroll down even further, what you're going to begin to see is the data that all the CAD information and the data that it represents. And I'm going to scroll all the way down. Like I said, I have actually 43 pages here. So now we're going to start seeing cut lists and information. Then we're going to see specific details about what these parts are representing. And here's all the fun stuff. This is what I like to see. These are the panels, and for instance, this one here is showing that it is a REVEGO Duo left outer front. So these are all the drilling positions that the DXF, DWG, or specific machinery data is going to be creating for me on the CNC for the panels that I'm going to choose. So when I go, I mean, you can see all the data. Every wooden component is going to be here, and including that separation panel or the cross panel, the front decorative panel in front of the rail. Even here, this is that top panel I was just talking about. There's that position for the Uno's tip-on Blue Motion device that gets screwed in. This is showing the cutout for a Duo here, as we can see on the screen. And I mean, this is excellent data. All of it is exactly what we're going to see in the training room when we start assembling the product. So when I go back to the Blum configurator, the product configurator, I also have the CAD/CAM data. So I have individual product information. You can see the extensions. And when we talk to whether it's designers, cabinet makers, or anybody, or engineers, we kind of show them this data and they go, yes, that's what I need. These are the file extensions that I'm looking for. There is a great range of data here. I mean, virtually every CAD system is running off a DWG, DXF file, and those are here as well, including some examples like XT files or step files. Those are there. We also have configuration information in DAE, DWG as well. And then the production drawings. Now this is what's going to be showing all the data for all the screw points or all the hole points in all the wood panels. We also have drilling programs. So as you can see here, we have BSA, a generic hop file for most machinery, HOMAG and SCM represented. So these can actually be taken right into their software programs directly. And then we also have CAD/CAM data, DXF CAD/CAM, CAM DXF system for all SFP systems. Unfortunately, I do not know what that means because the engineers will actually know what that is. Once we get beyond our product configurator, that becomes the domain of the engineer, the designer, or the planner who's using external software. So when I go back, we also have a BXF extension called the Blum Exchange file. When I go here, we'll see that there's a lot of different systems that we're representing here. AlphaCam, AutoCAD, PalletCAD, Pro 100, SketchUp 1, SketchUp 2. So we can also export into those systems as well. So from here, I'm going to actually go into the AutoCAD because the person that I'm using to cut my panels is using an AutoCAD, and I will actually download these files. And easily enough, because I'm working from the Blum Canada showroom, I can actually email these files to him and say, hey, these are the parts that I need cut. And sure enough, in a couple of days, he'll say, okay, they're here, they're ready, come pick them up or I'll ship them to you. So right now, I have completely designed a REVEGO Duo and Uno system. And from here, transferring it to my manufacturing level for the CNC, and I will wait for the parts to arrive. And then for all that, I'm going to order the actual REVEGO parts, and together we'll meet in the training room to start the actual assembly of all the parts on the finished CAD panels. Well, welcome to the Blum Canada workshop. We have now received all the parts from the CNC that we've used our eServices platform to design and create. I've now taken the instructions out of the box to start the process of assembling the entire components. So the first step that I've got to work with now is I've taken the parts out of the box one, which are all going to be the front to back nominal length components that will hold the door moving front to back. They all are marked with a P1, P2, P3, so it's very simple to follow through with what part needs to go where. When I look at the panel here, I have this cutout here. That is the top of the cabinet, not the bottom of the cabinet. This is where the rail that supports the dual pocket system goes, which is why the cutout is there. So in front of me, I've also got the system screws, which are a 661.1450, and these will be connecting almost everything that we have here with the exception of the end plates, which I'll use some wood screws. We do drill all the systems at 13 millimeters deep on the panels, hence the reason why we're using a 14.5 millimeter screw. So now that we've got the parts and now we're matching it up with the panels, another good point to point out is the fact that as we line the parts up, all the holes are lining up. So there's no guessing about, oh, do I have too many holes or not enough holes? Once we're lined up, now we start placing the system screws. I'm using our drill with a posi bit because the system screws that we use from our systems are all with a posi screw. So as I go through the system, I'm making sure that I have all these screws put in because this is the main rail. So what I've done is I've secured the main component front to back, and everything else is going to attach to it. So I'm now going to take the P2 part. I've done the main part. I'm now going to go to part 2. I'm going to literally just put it in, and no screws are needed because I'm going to use those retention screws to hold it in place. This component is also called the service interchange. Yeah, one of the advantages of the REVEGO system with this part is that all the motion technologies are all on this one panel. So should there be anything wrong with the REVEGO system in the future, this is the component that slides out. So now when I install this one, it kind of slides in and locks, and it sticks out a little bit because I have a retention screw that will eventually we screw in to connect all the parts. Then we'll take the retention screws with the rollers and attach them now. And with this, we put one in and then we rotate it in so that way it locks it in and snugs it in. So those parts are now installed. Those are the roller clips, and like I said, once we do put them in, we put them in an angle, start it, wrap them up, and then tighten both down, both system screws. So now we take the bottom P5 part and bring it down to the bottom. And this P5 component is all system screws, no retention clips. P5 is now in, so all the front to back parts are set. What we are looking at next is the retention clips that are going to hide the decorative strip that hides the hardware from the end consumer. These are also attached with the 661-1450 system screw. They are symmetrical, so it doesn't matter which way I go, but the holes are already pre-planned, so I don't have to worry about where they go. All right, with those spring retention clips for the decorative strip in place, the next step is to add the Blum motion device, which when the door opens, softens it on the way out. And from there, that's from step 1 through to step 7 in our instruction manual. And now we're going to look at adding the rail that holds the door system on, and we're going to install that next. So now we've got all the main front to back components in. We're now going to install the main track that goes and holds the door system. Depending on the height of the cabinet, in our case it's pretty tall, you might need a secondary person to help with it because doing it by one person with such a wide expanse is going to be a bit of a balancing issue. So I'm going to ask one of my coworkers to help me bringing it over to the system. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually take it, we're going to rotate. I've actually got the top part here. So you can come around. And how I can tell which is top, which is bottom is this component here attaches to the back eventually on the system, which is that main service piece that we talked about. So what you'll also see here are these covers. These covers are important because they hide the rollers and they will eject once I slide it into the system. Now, sometimes when I try to put this together, it takes a little bit of fidgeting because of how long the component is. But the thing also to be aware of is this cable here, when we install it with the Blum motion piece here, we have to come up and over. Otherwise, once we click it in, it's a little bit troublesome to bring it over. But we can just be aware that this is one of those tips and tricks that will bring it over once we start installing it. So with the transport pieces, we also have the piece that holds the main pulley piece for the cable. This also has to be removed at the same time. And it's that simple. We'll just pull a little bit of tension out for the cable. And this is the main protection roller down there. So yeah, so as you see, I've got some slack on the cable. I'm just going to put it on the other side of the Blum motion device. And now I'm just going to line up the tracks and just slide it on. And when I do so, it'll lock into place automatically. So now it doesn't move and everything's in a controlled situation. From here, I'll take the transport lock off. All right, so I've taken the transport lock off. I am now going into this component here, which is going to match up at the top there. And I'm literally just going to keep pulling cable out until I reach the top here. And then I'm going to lock it in place through the keyhole slots that are there and slide it down. With this attachment, I'm going to use the posi drive screwdriver. I would not use a power tool because of how fine they are, but I would just slightly just put it in and I just tighten it. And it's not a lot of work. They also come preset with Loctite, so once they are in, they're not going to back out. So I'm also attaching the main pulley assembly down to the bottom, and I'm just going to slide it under, and it has its own keyhole channel that it's going to fit into at the back here. So now I've attached the bottom pulley. One thing to be aware of is the cable has a little button end on the end. You just got to make sure that is setting properly inside, because once we tension the cable, if it's sitting outside, there is the possibility that it would stick out, and when we do finally tighten it up, it would actually loosen off the cable a bit, but that's kind of just something to be aware of. Now I've taken care of this end, I'm going to go down here. There was that one screw that was offset. Now I'm going to include that into the system. So everything is attached now with the main system onto the front to back nominal length components. I'm going to do the next step, which is tighten the cable. And it's very simple. Inside the full body system is where the cable is tucked into. And it's just a little slot. And I'm just going to pull it out. So with this, it says 2 newtons, which is really, once I tighten this up, this cable firmly, it says 2 newtons of strength to tighten these 2 screws. Really what it is just a firm turn. And it's just, I'm not over reefing it, over tightening it. I am just making them very snug. And then from there, I'm using this system here, which puts the additional strength into it. And the way it works is that I'm kind of turning this until I hear 3 clicks. And that is putting the optimal tension on the cable. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Once it's done, I now will take the cable and I'll insert it back to where it came from. That cable is not to be cut. It is just hidden away and it will never get in your way once it's installed. This is all the parts that are installed for a REVEGO Duo, all the motion parts. Now we're going to take the end plates, attach them, and enclose the pocket. And then we're going to be complete with the actual pocket of the Duo. So when we do the end plates, on the draft drawings that we get from the e-services program, we will get details as to where these alignment holes will go on the STL 8000. And I literally will put it on the other side and just slide it into place, and it's going to be in its natural position. So I can now drill the 5mm pilot holes that will help guide the plates into place. And from the top, I now duplicate it at the bottom, and the numbers may change depending on the width, but it also slides into the same place just like at the other end. Now I take the top plates and I'm going to place them. Obviously this being the front, and because they are only pilot holes, this allows me to mark, there's a little detents here, and they're just gonna slide in and hold in place so I can place the wood screw in here that holds it in place. And I'm gonna take a number 7 wood screw and attach it to the back. Top plates are on. Now I'm going to the bottom plates. And again, making sure that I have the rollers at the bottom and to the front. So now that I've got the base plates and all the hardware installed, I'm now going to enclose the pocket, and that I'm going to obviously need a little bit of help, and I'm going to ask my coworker to assist in bringing the panel in so we can attach it. And it will also have been pre-drilled with the STL 8000, similar to as what we've seen here. So when I put the pocket on top, everything aligns. All right, so now we're going to just lift it up and place it on top. Okay, so you're going to need to hold it in place. Hold it right there just one sec. That'll be the bottom plates attached, and now I'm going to do the top. With both end plates installed, I can now install the back. And from there, my pocket is now complete. You're probably gonna look at the way you've done it versus the way we've done it and say there's something different. These holes that you see are from our training display, which we're building, so our customers can see how it works on the inside. We've also put in some quick connect fittings in here so we can quickly dismantle it and reassemble it multiple times during training sessions. So with this, I'm just going to be sliding the back in and locking it in place. So what you can expect is that the drawings and the CAD data coming out of our e-services platform is going to give you a rabbited edge, so that way your back panel, depending on however thick you make it, is going to sit and nest naturally, and that will also provide additional rigidity to the pocket. There we go. Our REVEGO Duo Pocket is now complete. From here, we'll take this off the bench, set it aside as if I was going to transport it and get it ready for transport to our site. I am now going to bring the double doors onto this platform and start attending the hardware there. So now that we've moved the pocket off site, we've now got the two doors on the workbench, and they're already been CNC'd for all the holes. You'll also notice that we have these long holes here. Those are for door straighteners. This is something that Blum does not manufacture, but as cabinet makers, you obviously would have lots of sources for those, and those could be taken from anywhere. So I'm also still following my instructions because it'll be step by step on how the doors are, all the hardware on the doors are going to be. So right now I'm going to start with the process of the tip-on unit, and it's going to be mounted at the top of the door. And also too, the tip-on unit, as we've also indicated in the previous pocket, all the holes are aligned, so there's no way of mixing up the positions. So I've got the holes here. I'm just going to align the holes in position here. Now I'm back to my 14.5 millimeter system screws to attach the hardware. The tip-on unit is in place. The next step I have is to take the main rail system that's going to attach itself to the pocket and attach it to the one door. And again, I have them already pre-CNC'd. We'll do it, bring them and align them. With the door strip in place, now I can just put it away to the side. It's ready to go in, and it's ready to go here. I am now going to take on the hinge positions now. And one of the things that we are going to look at on the hinge is that we have some extra detent holes, so that way we can have the hinge oriented properly. So although we have the 8 screws, we also have 3 locating holes, 2 on one side and 1 on the other, and they're also marked on the hinge plate. So now I'm just going to repeat this for the rest of the hinges down, keeping in mind that I've got to align those detents to the detents that are drilled into the board. The hinges are now installed. Now what I'm going to be working on next is the attachment brackets that will hide a strip that's going to hide the gap when the door is in position. And from there, one of the things that we need to be aware of is where these placements go. With these cover strip retention clips, we've got the main guide, which I'm going to place here. And again, already pre-CNC'd, so I don't have to guess where it's going. So the key part of the retention clips is that I've got to sandwich the bottom and the top. So they're going to be going in this way. Where the other ones lie in between is not of a huge concern because I can put them on either side. So I'm going to pretty much put them in place first with the silver screw up. As I feed that rail in, it'll be coming in from this side. So I'm going to align them so I'm pushing all the gravity down. And the end one, I will hold off until I get to the end. This cover strip is one of the components that may need cutting because it comes in the maximum length in the box and we need to trim it to the panel size. This one's already been preset. So now I'm going to feed the strip in. I'm going to continue feeding the rail down while connecting these retention clips at the same time. They go together very easily. Now that I've slid it into place, I'm just going to tighten up the screws that are there. I'm not going to tighten it too tight because if I go too tight, I'm going to go through to the aluminum and leave an indentation. So I'm just going to go to it snug, and that is going to be perfect. And now that is installed. So the next step for me is now I'm going to add in a component at the top, which is going to hold on to the track assembly that guides the door in and out once it's installed. As you may have noticed, I've been using a screwdriver and a screw gun. Obviously, when I'm talking about the more delicate positions, I'm going to use a screwdriver. Using a screw gun would obviously do some damage. So a lot of the positions I'm doing with a screw gun, but even still, you may want to attach these with a posi drive screwdriver at the same time. So now that I've got the track assembly in place, I'm going to follow the instructions and find down to the bottom where I'm going to have a connection point for where I have my double doors and my single door where they actually will match in the middle, and I will attach the door connection point. These two components are magnetically attached, so when the doors come in, they will align themselves and attach so they don't wobble and disconnect at the bottom. They'll go down into the bottom here. The hardware is now installed on the two doors. I do have an optional part called a toe kick support. Now I have planned for it, it is an option, and it does place in here, so when I do open the doors, it's going to rest against the toe kick and prevent or create additional support. So we have the toe kick support in place, and this little ramp system is that when the doors do come together, it actually rides up the wheel that's on the toe kick support and folds it into place so it doesn't get in the way. Now with the optional parts installed, my doors are now complete. Now I'm going to fold them over, and by opening this system, the hinge system here, you'll notice that we have some rubber feet here. So when we fold the doors closed, they're going to rest on the rubber feet and not have any damage with each other. So with the optional part, I will also have to put it in place because it is spring-loaded. It will stay in the open position. So I'll just tape it down so it doesn't get in the way. And with assistance with my coworker, we're going to fold the doors shut. And they're going to rest on those rubber feet. There we go. So now we have the REVEGO Duo doors completely installed with parts, ready to meet its pocket on site. So the next part we have is the top cover plate above our system that's going to connect the two pockets. And what I'm attaching now is a front to back adjustment plate. So that way when I have the top rail, which you will see shortly, when I have to make any adjustments front to back, this is what's going to allow me to do so. And also because we're doing a Uno alongside, the Uno tip-on system is with this piston here. We've pre-drilled a 10mm hole, and we're going to insert the magnetic piston inside. So we're done with the top part of the connection point between the Duo and Uno, and I'm going to do the fascia cover, which also houses the magnetic strip for the tip-on on the Duo system. So this is the front strip of the Duo Uno combination. And what you'll see here are the brackets that attach it to the rail. And also already pre-installed is a magnetic catch plate for the Duo's tip-on system. So with the brackets, they're also in the CAD data files to where exactly they need to be placed. And I'm going to now place them here and screw them in with the 14.5mm system screws. So that is now the fascia part complete, and that will go off to the side until we have the pockets of the Uno and the Duo along with that cross plate installed. And then once everything is set, then this will go in place and pretty much finish the system off. So now we're going to assemble the main rail for the Duo system, which I would need only if I had a Duo. But because I've also got a REVEGO Duo and a REVEGO Uno, I need an extension piece. With this extension piece, I'm going to be attaching two main connection points. I will install them with an Allen key, and once they're inside, they are self-tapping aluminum screws. So I've already pre-installed them. I can't take them out, but there's no worry. It's not like I can put them in the wrong place because they're in the same place all the time. So when we have a Duo and an Uno together, we're going to have a connector plate that joins the two systems together. But before we get to that point, in our drawings and in our data, we're going to have information that tells us what we need to cut. So it'll be a dimensional number in the system. It says we've got to cut a component to X size, and we've already done that. And we're going to now connect the two parts together. This bracket is going to have 4 Allen keys, and we're going to slide it in place and then connect them. I'll just place it on its back to make it a little easier. I'm just going to tighten these Allen keys up. And this little screw here is our adjustment for front to back adjustment once it's installed, and that relates to the part that we put on that top panel that goes across, connecting the two pockets together. This is the cross rail, now fully completed. All we have to do is now install it in between the pockets once we get to that point. We also have this component here that is not only a decorative strip where the adjustment screw front to back is, but it allows for a continuation between the two profiles. When I install it, it's now going to stay in place until we install. Now that we've completed this part, this takes care of all the REVEGO Duo components, plus the transitionary parts, including the rail and the secondary rail for the Uno. And All that would be left next is to start the installation on the REVEGO pocket for the Uno. So now that we've done the REVEGO Duo system, we're going to start on the REVEGO Uno. And the parts are very similar. There are some difference in parts. And we did talk about a surface interchange component with the Duo. And with the Uno, we also see the same system, but it is a different color. It does exact same shape and does the exact same things. We'll also have another panel in a P2 position, which was a longer panel in the Duo, but a shorter one here. And that allows for the decorative strip that hides the hardware to be kicked out and out of the way so the hinges do not hit. And also to be more aesthetically pleasing, because we will see the hinge hardware on an Uno compared to the Duo, because when we close the Duo, all the hardware is in between and you don't see it. When the Uno comes out of its pocket, you'll see the hardware. So what Blum has done is we've created the components in onyx, which is an onyx. It's a dark color and it's a lot more aesthetically pleasing than just shiny nickel coated parts. So these are pretty much the same parts with some very minimal changes. And from there, we'll start the assembly, which is very similar. The processes of P1, P2, all the way down through the instruction book is exactly the same, and it's very easy. I'm always going to use my instructions when I do the assembly, and I'm going to start with the components. We're going to fast forward this because it's a lot of the same processing, and that way we don't have to repeat ourselves too much. Okay, so we're gonna make this. I'm gonna do the same thing, and I'm gonna take that cable and put it over the tip on. There you go. Take this off now. Now you find your slotted hole. Okay, again, don't go all the way. There we go. Now bring it back so it's locked. Done. Okay. So the REVEGO Uno pocket is complete once I add the back. And as we did with the Duo, what's different about our system and what you'll be building is that we have a component in the back so we can quick assembly and disassemble the system for training purposes, along with the access holes. So once I have the backs in, which when you do it, there'll be a rabbeted edge, you'll be inserting your back on and including it in the cabinet itself, and it'll add more rigidity. We're now complete. We'll remove the pocket and begin the installation of the door hardware. Now we're at the assembly portion of the REVEGO Uno door. What to recognize is that the parts are onyx black and the screws that come with the system are also onyx black. So we need to make sure that we have all the parts and we're ready to go. So I'm going to start installing the parts, and it goes very similar to the way we did the REVEGO Duo. So this concludes the assembly of the REVEGO Duo and the REVEGO Uno as we've just done. But one of the important factors to look at is that we are controlling all of the assembly in the shop. Nothing is really installed intricately on site. All we're doing is installing a very large, tall cabinet, which is the pocket, and mounting the doors and all the cross hardware. It is that simple to install once we're on site. So that's what we're going to do next. So we'll see you at the application site. So now we're in the Blum Canada training room, and this is where we're going to do the final application installation and showing you the adjustments of the REVEGO Duo and the Uno in our system. As you see here, we have 3 cabinets. They're coincidentally 600 by 600 by 600, so we have an 1800 internal space. These are mounted true and square to our wall. This is kind of our anchor point. And from here, we're going to be installing the pockets on left and right side. What you'll see here is we see a variety of different holes because this facilitates us in the training room to install, remove, and just repeat and repeat. So that way we don't have to fix this semi-permanently or permanently like a cabinet maker would be when he does it on a site inside of a kitchen, living room, or wherever he's putting the REVEGO. So we're gonna start the process here by bringing in our pockets. We're gonna lay them in place, and then we're going to show them being leveled. Both left and right and front to back, as well as making sure that the 2 pockets are also equal in height, so that way they will match together once we are fully complete. So now that we've brought the REVEGO Duo pocket into place, we're going to use some system screws that will allow us to connect it in with a 2-part screw. This is very unique to our training room because we will remove and install this system many times during a training program. That way we don't need to permanently affix screws like you would if you were installing it into an actual home application. So from here, we will take a very long level. This one's a 2-meter level, which is highly recommended. Using a smaller bevel or small oil level system is good, but this is much better. And because of our core system inside, like I said, being already true and square, it makes life so much easier because this is setting up very level. As you can see now, the pocket is installed just on its own. We still have some more work to do when we bring the Uno over, and then we got to start putting the upper platform above that will be connecting the 2 parts. So now that we've got the Uno pocket in here, one thing you may notice is that we've got this set up with a toe kick application. When we do the application for the REVEGO, you're going to either do it with or without a toe kick. There's no way of combining both systems, but we were able to do it with our own planning to accommodate all the training scenarios that we can go under. So just checking the square with the 2-meter level to make sure we are square. We are square here, and we are square here. So now we're going to install the top cross panel, which would have our rail adjust for front to back on it. So in the Blum training room, we have the ability to take this cabinetry apart multiple times. And we do that by putting in these quick connect fittings. So this is not something that a cabinet maker would incorporate because he would be then affixing the system more permanently, more decoratively, more aesthetically than we're going to. So we can still see all these parts where you wouldn't see it in your normal REVEGO application. So we'll lift this up into place. So bring it up over. Yep, now we're gonna just put it there. So now with this installed, you can sort of see that we have the Uno tip-on mechanism still here. So that's exactly where the Uno is going to be going, and the Duo on this side. So now we're going to install the cross rail above, but we still have to attach adapter in the corner. This is the locking device for the cross rail on the Uno side. I'm just going to install it now. So one of the other things that once this is all installed, we would be measuring it for height across the two panels. And because we have our core centerpiece, we know for a fact is true and level, and our screw points are, we're going to actually see with the level that it's actually still remains tall, it's true across. Just a matter of us taking a double check across the platform, and we're still seeing it as level, which is perfect. So now that the pocket is installed, the installer will take the hideaway strip or the decorative strip that hides the hardware from the consumer. And it's removed very simply by pushing little tabs, and out it comes. So this is a carriage roller system that's going to pull the doors front to back. And we have to install this now while we're still accessible to everything behind here. When I do put it in place, it does go in firmly, but it does go in, and then once it's in, I can release this catch plate. So now we will install the cross rail for the Duo and Uno that the doors will track against. So now that we have both pockets installed, and we have the cross member piece and the latches installed, now we have the piece of the rail with the Duo and the Uno combination on it. Because again, it was installed and manufactured at the factory, all things just going to click in. All I have to do now is install the door carriage. And it goes in very simply. With the roller now slid in, I do have to tape it in place because it does move very freely. So I will take a piece of tape just to secure it so it doesn't move while I'm moving up and down, as you can see. So now I'm going to take this, mount it up into place. This is where I installed the cover cap over the bracket. And secure the rail hardware. I'll then release this carriage's rollers, so they're now moving. I have my upper carriage up there taped and secured, and now all that's left to do is bring the doors in. So what I'm going to do with the doors, I'm going to bring them in as close as possible. I am mounting it from the inside, and there is enough space to put my hand in, grab the two doors, and then I will lift and put it into place. The detent clip I will lock into place. And now my doors are installed. I'm going to take my tape off my carriage, and the carriage system will tilt down. So I will now open the magnetic strip here that holds this in place. So now we have the Duo door installed. Now all I got to do now is insert the door into the pocket so I can put the cross valance on top. And how I do that is I have door retention clips that are keeping everything in the lock position. I'm just going to release them and then slide the door in. So now that I have the Duo door in the pocket, I'm going to take the portion that hides our rail, but also has the magnet for the tip-on system on it. And when I do install this, it's best that I come in from the top and push it in through the bottom. So now that we have the door actually installed, we just wanted to show you that once it's working, we'll just activate it. And this is a pure mechanical system, no motors, no electricity. So when it's open, I actually will finish by closing it. So I'm going to be putting the Uno door on next. So I'll just keep this in the closed position and bring in the Uno door. We start first by taking the hiding panel, the strip here that hides the hardware from the consumer, and that's simply by pushing the same clips like we had on the Duo out to pull the retention clips off. And we'll just move that to the side until we're done. Now I'm going to bring the REVEGO Uno door over, but first I have to remove the retention knurled knobs that will hold the door in place. So now that I've taken the top one off, I'm going to do the same with the bottom. And also what's good is they actually have a drop of thread lock on it, so once I do have the door installed, it's going to stay in place without any vibration coming loose. I'll just put them to the side and bring the door in. With the REVEGO Uno door, the hinge strip is in such a position that I have a nice place to put my hand, so that way I can lift the door up and put it into place. Now I'm going to bring it closer to the actual pocket, so that way it's not as far to lift and I'm more accurate with the lift point. So now that I've mounted the door, I'm just going to affix it with the knurled knobs that I've taken off previously. So now I've done the top one, I'm going to do the same for the bottom. Like the REVEGO Duo, we have retention clips that are holding the door in the open position. So now I'm going to release those retention clips so that way I can put the door back into the pocket. All right, so now that the door can be actually put into its pocket, that's what I'm going to do now. There's there, and with the Uno, when I activate it, it's just going to come straight out, and then I'm going to close it. So now I'm resting against that tip-on piston that was at the top, so when I release it, it pushes it open, and then I will take it and I will close it back in. So from this point here, now I'm going to put back those decorative strips that I had taken off because I'm complete with the actual installation. So now that I have the decorative strips to come back, I'm now going to place them back into position by just pushing them back into place where those clips were. There we go. All right, I'm inserting the hideaway strip into the Duo, similar to the way I did it with the Uno. And there we go. With those final pieces in place, now the installer is just going to close the doors to make sure everything's in alignment, and if there's anything that needs to be further tuned with regards to gaps or heights and measurements there, it can be easily done. Right now it's looking good, and if there's any adjustments that's required, it's very simple to get at. It's just a matter of opening the doors, putting them back in their pockets, and all the adjustment features are going to be available. However, when we get all the CAD data from all the planning into our CNC, once everything is true, square, and flat, and I know there's not a lot of homes that are true, square, and flat, but for the most part, if we can get this thing level, everything's going to be perfectly. There's going to be very, very little adjustments we're going to need. So I'm going to just open the door, and we're going to look inside to see where all these adjustments are. This here is my in and out adjustment, and this is my left and right adjustment. So as we have the left and right on the top to manage that side, we have the same system screws down below to make that same adjustment down there. And this is my in and out adjustment. This is my left to right adjustment, and down here is my height adjustment. So now that we've done the REVEGO Uno adjustments, I'm going to show you the REVEGO Duo adjustments. I have to open the door and put it into a locked position. And that's by hitting the retention clips as we've done previously. So this is where my retention clip at the top. I'm just going to loosen that off. All right. So from here, this is my left-right adjustment. I have my in and out adjustment at the top. I have the same in and out adjustment at the bottom. Here's my vertical adjustment. Right here is my left-right adjustment. And then when I look inside, I have my gap adjustment by lifting up the clip and releasing it. This is my left-right adjustment on the hinges to manage the door gaps. So there you have it. We've now shown you an application, and now we're back to our perfect wall. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this feature. And if there's any information you want on the REVEGO system, you can reach out to us at our website at blum.com. And we have the ability to also, on our website with the contact information, reach out to us by phone or email. And that way, any one of our representatives across the country can reach out back to you and provide the information that you need. So I really appreciate it again. Thank you very much for watching, and we look forward to the REVEGO system with you.